Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Twin Peaks: The Return, Part 11. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. Well, we opened last week's discussion by saying, yeah, there were good things to like in last week's episode, but it was possibly the weakest, that we'd had so far. It was, just slightly underwhelming, I guess is how I'd
Yeah,
phrase it.
definitely. It wasn't bad, but it would just come to expect a bit more.
Five, even, it may not have even been 5 minutes, but like a couple of minutes into this, it was like, this feels, there's stuff happening here, and then it was basically non-stop the entire episode. This was outside of episode 8. If episode 8 didn't exist and blew my freaking mind, this would probably be the best one so far.
I'd have to think about it. It's definitely up there. I don't know if
That's
say
fair,
that straight
but I was really into this episode.
Oh no, I was too. But there's been a lot of ones that I was really into.
Oh, sure,
so.
sure. But I just, in a number of ways, there's a lot of really interesting things that happen for me in terms of characters. There's a lot of interesting, obviously, lore stuff and mythology and greater things going on and all kind of shenanigans. So we'll get into it. I got my notes as we do it. I've got 4 pages this week for those who are keeping track.
I've got got about 6. Shorter, mine is slightly smaller.
We go through this every week. I've got an A4 pad. Yeah. He has an A5 pad.
Sure. I don't know. It doesn't say on the front. I thought it would tell me.
Is it like that? Is it about that size?
So I just hold it up, can't I?
It's about
that size.
It's about A5. It looks about A5.
That'll do. Solved.
All right, now we've solved that. Let's get into Twin Peaks, the Return, Part 11. First up, just I like to try and bring up some points from last week. If anyone, sometimes in the comments people point out some cool stuff, or and I don't always remember all of them. But one thing I do want to bring up: last week we talked about Chad intercepting the letter from Miriam, who of course was the witness to Richard's crime and was attacked at the start of the episode. A lot of eagle-eyed people noticed that was actually the wrong letter. The last name was different from the surname in the credits. So Chad shit at doing his con job.
Yeah. I'm going to say in our defense for not spotting it, I don't think Miriam's name had been said out loud.
Oh no, I don't think her last name had been said out loud. I think it was just people were being being eagle-eyed and looking at the credits. But so. Yeah, actually, so one of the things that people also, someone suggested in the comments was that they didn't think the trailer was actually going to blow up because of because there was still airflow. There was.
Oh, yes, he smashed the window, didn't he?
Yeah, like they think, that probably won't ignite, and that's a fair point. We never mentioned that last week, and sure enough, first thing that happens this week is we have some kids out playing catch or whatever, and Miriam comes crawling out the woods, a bloody mess. So. There's no more development on that in this episode, but just needless to say, this is going to be something that comes up.
She is alive, is the point.
She's alive, yes. In great pain, but alive nonetheless. My only other thought during this scene, and this is really nothing to do with Twin Peaks specifically, is just that I respect the camera operator during this scene, because he was following the ball back and forth, and he was keeping it in frame the entire time. And as someone who's tried to do that with a camera, and like, not a ball specifically, something that's slower, something that's even easier to do, it's really difficult to actually keep it in frame and have the speed correct. So I commend the cameraman. That took a lot of practice.
Especially when it's kids throwing it, you can't guarantee how hard they're going to throw that ball.
Yeah, sure. And when I say practice, I'm sure they practiced that a little bit on set, but I just mean the operator's very well seasoned in his job. He knows how to time things.
Yeah, because it was flawless.
Because even doing it with a person just walking from left to right is actually harder than you'd think it would be when you're behind the camera. So. I commend the operator.
My only thing was I like that I didn't notice it before. The trailer park was called Fat Trout. Thought it was a cool name for a trailer park.
I don't think it means anything, but I agree.
It probably doesn't, but I was just like, no, that's cool.
There we go. What I think is really interesting about the next couple of scenes is that I've got. I usually have a header for a scene, and then I just have notes for the scene, then I'll move on to a new header. I didn't really have that for like the next chunk. I had just as one big, because it was all continuous and cutting between things. It was probably the first time this season where I felt like it was intercutting a lot of things together like this, where it was all building towards the same.
Yeah, I think the closest before that was where the hit and run on the kid.
Yeah.
But this was a bit more direct.
Yeah, this was more energetic because it was like one scene affected the other and caused the other to happen, and they all kind of built on from each other. So basically, Becky is on the phone with someone, and we find out later that whoever's on the phone is telling her of Steve, shitty Steve, or what turns out to be her husband. We didn't know they were married, I don't think, before this episode. But
I was not aware. No.
no, but she finds out that he's having an affair over the phone. I'm like, oh, just like her mother. so many things. But first of all, she gives out a great scream, which I thought was particularly good. But then she's very frantic. She then phones Shelley, phones her mother, insists she needs a car. She makes it sound like it's an emergency because she just frantically says, It's Steve, I need the car."
Yeah. At first, I was writing down that she needs to help Steve.
Yeah,
like that was the kind of the way she was playing it.
I think the first time I watched it, I did maybe think that because that's the way it kind of played until she went for the gun, and I went, "Oh no."
Yeah, that's what I've got. I've got. She needs to help. I did put question mark Steve, and then saw a gun. I was like, nope. I just crossed it out.
No, Steve's getting what's coming to him. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
So that was good. Again, very frantic, very quick paced. I did note down though, does Norma just do nothing but receipts now? Because I feel like every time we've seen her in the Double R, she's always sitting at that exact same table with the receipts sprawled out in her all her account books and stuff.
The Double R is making much more money than it used to. They need someone full time on those books.
That is true. It's a lot busier. It's a lot busier than it used to be.
I've
I've actually got some thoughts on that later.
Okay.
I've got some thoughts on that later. But so she runs out. Shelley runs out with a car. She arrives at Becky's, and Becky just comes running out, grabs the keys, gets in the car. Now, if you'd asked me before this episode started, a list of things that you would expect to have seen in this episode, I don't think Shelley jumping like a stuntman onto the hood of the car and like flying around on top of the car and then being thrown off of it was going to be like one of the things I listed. Which, by the way, red shoes. Don't think I didn't notice the red shoes.
No. I also respect Becky's driving. That she spun her off pretty competently.
That's true. I thought that was. I just.
And I also like that she waited till she was over the grass when she rolled her off. She didn't do it over the gravel. That was nice.
Fair, yeah.
Even in the moment.
She at least had enough sense to make sure that she didn't completely injure her mother. She just got a scraped knee, which you see in the next couple of shots. It's funny because Twin Peaks shows us so many crazy things. More on that later. But it shows us these insane things, demons and nuclear explosions and all these crazy things and, floating men with orbs of light and all that shenanigans. But there's a moment, when Shelley was on the hood of the car and it was the shot from inside the window.
Like, this is the most ridiculous thing in this show.
Yeah, from inside the windscreen, and she's just like pull over this car right now, young lady. She didn't say that, but that's kind of the gist of what's going on.
Yeah.
And this is insane. This is actually like the most insane thing in this show, and it isn't really. Like, this show's full of weird shit.
It was kind of the most Twin Peaks thing in the show, though. Like classic Twin Peaks, quirky, just ridiculous things. That's kind of where it felt.
But it was just, man, what's going on? So she drives off, and meantime, Carl, who's obviously owns this trailer park, comes out. And he's like, "Oh, Shelley, what's happened?" And he's got this giant whistle. So he's like, "I need a ride back to the Double R," and he pulls out this big whistle to call his. Does the driver or the van always just listen for this whistle? Is this how he's summoned?
No, I was like, this is amazing. I want one of those whistles. If I can summon my personal vehicle at a blow of a whistle. It
reminded me of a little bit. This combined with the fact that he's got the radio in his van. Like, he just opens this little latch and he's got a radio to call the police like on a moment's notice.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of Sheriff Truman's computer screen that was hidden away. I feel like he's an old guy. We established he's 90 years old. I don't know if we mentioned that actually on the show, because we debated his age off on the show, and then in the comments people said, no, he's actually just 90 years old. And I looked up his age. Howard Dean Stanton is 90 years old.
Yeah,
dude's doing well for 90. But I just love the idea that he's such an old man, but he's got all these. He's very slow, sure, because he has to be slow at his age, but he's very well prepared. He's got all these things in place in case a scenario crops up.
The whistle is very low tech, but the radio is. It's not high tech, but it's exactly the tech he needs to have.
Oh yeah, it's old school, but it's reliable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. I'll stay off Becky. But because of what Becky does, there's a fun little thing where it cuts to the dispatcher in the police station, and obviously everyone in this apartment building's calling her at the same time because she's like, she takes the first call, like, oh, where are you? Blah blah blah, that address. All right, someone's on their way. Right, rings again. Someone's on their way. Rings again, someone's on the way. And then what I love, this little touch that makes it even funnier, is that then the actual phone rings, because this is all through our headset, it's all through the actual sort of regular dispatch, and then the phone that she's got with her rings as well, which I don't know what in particular makes that one different. I guess that's the non 911, I imagine.
Yeah, the non-emergency.
Yeah, and she picks that up, and she's just like, yeah, someone's on the way. The fact that it switched to the phone made it really funny to me.
Yeah, I get it.
That was the quirky touch that made that really funny. Of course, before that, she does put Shelley through to Bobby, which was interesting. That was exciting. See when Carol says, "Oh, call Bobby," so, or I think it was Norma that said, "Call Bobby." Still doing those receipts, by the way, back at the Double R. But she's like, "Call Bobby." She's like, "Yeah, I'll call Bobby." And I'm like, "Oh, we've not actually," because as much as we've theorized, "Oh, is Becky his daughter and stuff," we've not actually seen them together in the show yet. This is the first time where I'm like, "Oh, okay." And sure enough, she calls Bobby and tells him what's going on. But anyway, so Becky goes to Steve's. No, it's not Steve's apartment actually. It's the mistress, we'll call her.
Yeah.
Her apartment. And I really liked how this was filmed. How the camera's on the stairs inside the building, and you just hear the screech of the tires pull up, and you just wait, and you hear the storming, and then eventually you see Becky come up the stairs, and it follows her up to the door. And she's banging on the door. Neighbours like, not in there. They were here before, but they've left. There's no one in there. And she notices the gun, and she just like backs away, and is like, "Oh, okay." I thought this was all great stuff. Specifically when Becky just says "F you, Steve," and then just like fires into the door. I already made the thumbnail for this, and the shot I used is her with the gun directly in front of her face, pointing at the camera.
Nice.
I just thought it was a really nice sort of hard, like, because Steve's been such an asshole, and on top of all this he's cheating, like on top of like being abusive and stealing her money and being a drug addict, and top of all of this he's cheating on her.
It would have been nice to see him actually get shot, basically, is what we're saying.
I'm still expecting it. I'm still expecting some comeuppance down the line.
I'm hoping so.
I mean, remember what happened to Leo? He's still under those spiders all these years later. He died of starvation.
I don't know. He eat the spiders.
If it didn't kill him first.
True.
That's a good question. Like, if you eat a poisonous spider, does that actually give you do you get poisoned?
Well, no, I know, because there's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because venomous is if they bite you, poisonous is if you eat it.
Aye. So if you eat a venomous snake, for example, you don't actually get the effect of it.
I would have thought not, because it has to be injected into your. It has to be injected and released.
Sure,
like that.
I guess, but surely if you eat the head though, where it's stored, theoretically you could still consume it.
Yeah, no, quite possibly.
But I suppose that a poisonous snake is the whole
because
thing.
If it's when you're bitten or stung, whatever, it goes directly into your bloodstream.
That's
whereas
true.
if you eat it, it gets filtered through the system.
That's fair.
So I don't know. Maybe it's safer.
We've just triggered like 5 comments telling us how venomous and poisonous snakes work.
Yeah.
Okay, so favourite part of this whole scene though, after the shooting, we get what I'm going to call the Mulholland Drive Steadicam shot, where it's the camera spookily goes through the hallways and down the stairs, and it's all very almost kind of Evil Dead actually. Almost, it's like the Evil Dead sort of Deadite cam that you get. Have you seen Evil Dead?
Yeah. I've seen the first couple.
Kind of like that, and then but it ends on like Steve and his girlfriend. He's bitten the side or like down in the stairs. Like, oh shit, I better not go up there.
Just hiding. It's like I'm not facing that.
Yeah, but what I like that, and I think what the camera movement to me said there, not that it represents Becky necessarily directly, but just the idea that his shittiness is going to catch up with him, like it's coming for him. That's what that camera movement before it went to them told me.
Yeah, it's inescapable, isn't it? It will catch up.
Yeah. So have I missed anything here that I oh yeah, there's some small subtle little moments that I liked. I liked it when Shelley's on the radio with Bobby, and she's telling him everything that's happening, and then eventually she ends it with, and Bobby, she's got a gun. I love Carl's oh god, like, so he didn't know that until that point. His oh god just cracked me up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was all I had on that.
Right, so that's the opening 10 minutes down.
Hi, I'm saying buckle in, okay? It's going to be a long one.
Yeah.
Buckle in, right? A lot of stuff in this, a lot of meat. This was action-packed already, right?
It really was. We're
already there. Okay. Okay, so then we go to South Dakota.
Yeah.
We go to South Dakota. We got our usual FBI squad with Diane. Also, Detective Mackley's there, and he's brought Matthew Lillard, what's his face, Bill Hastings, and they're at the location where he claims, although I believe him admittedly, but just to keep things proper, he claims this is where he encountered Major Briggs, that this location has some sort of importance. And he fills them in, and he's like, okay, I went through the fence, went about 10, 15 feet or whatever it was, and that's where. And it's like, okay, where's this going? Like, and I had no idea where this scene was going. Like, something spooky going to happen.
Yeah, not at first, and then you kind of see the figure at the back of it.
Yeah, obviously there's a moment just before they go through where they see a charcoal man. Now, interestingly, because we theorised that only one of the charcoal men actually come out and about in present day, that turns out to be at least not the case here. Because this is not the same one that was in the prison cell.
Certainly didn't seem to be, no.
No. This was a little fat guy, which kind of added to the effect of a scene, or a moment that's coming up in the same scene. So Gordon goes through with Albert, but Albert sort of stays back, and Gordon goes up to the spot specifically. And he gets to the area, and from Albert's perspective, there's a sort of shimmering, kind of like, he's looking at Gordon, and there's like a sort of shimmering...
Yeah, it's kind of blurred.
On his way as well, you start to hear the electrical hum. So you know there's like proper lodge-related activity.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Bill wasn't bullshitting. Stuff's going on.
Yeah, and he gets to this spot, and then we cut to this wide shot of the entire sort of landscape.
Yeah.
And a giant vortex starts to open up in the sky.
Yeah, my notes, I just put sky vortex.
Black hole. No one else but Gordon can see this. He can see because he's in the spot. I think Gordon or Albert and that can only see
too far back.
Yeah, they can see like Gordon shimmering and like at least Albert can. You can see that.
Yeah, because obviously we saw the charcoal man. He kind of appeared and then disappeared. So you kind of get some effects just around this area.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they're seeing. Like Gordon's just on the edge, so he's kind of in between worlds.
I actually think it's just Albert that's close enough to even see that, because when it cuts to the wide shot later on, when Gordon's holding up his hands and you don't see any of it, it's almost like Diane and like Tammy,
true.
like only just see Gordon going like this, and it just looks stupid. Because it's a kind of a funny like little moment in the middle of all this craziness that it cuts back and you just see him standing there like this. It looks really stupid. But yeah, so this swirling vortex, it opens up, and it's kind of like a black hole kind of opening. And Gordon's actually shimmering away. He starts to like flicker out of existence, almost like he's going to this place. And Albert actually steps in and pulls him back to keep him here, which is a really cool moment. But of course, as he's shimmering away, he sees something, like where he would be going. And he sees a staircase. And there's three, I think, maybe four, charcoal men standing on the staircase. These bearded men. I'm laughing about a line that comes up there. But so it's these charcoal men. Now, eagle-eyed viewers. Now, I'm not going to take credit for this because I didn't notice this. But people on the internet, blessed the internet.
Probably read it. Thank you, Reddit.
Probably read it. Top of the staircase, like just between two of the charcoal men, you can make. And on the second viewing, I was kind of looking for it.
Yeah.
You can see the wallpaper behind them.
What colour is it?
It's not red, but the wallpaper, it matches something though. It matches the rooms that Laura was going through in Fire Walk with Me in the dream. If you remember the dream sequence where she kept going through the rooms,
yeah,
and it was like blue with flowers on it.
Yeah,
that's the wallpaper. So
very interesting.
Which at least says, okay, Laura was definitely going through lodge places. If not the lodge itself, then these connected areas. Can we talk about how the pink ocean's not necessarily part of the lodge, but it's part of that world.
Adjacent.
Yeah. So that was a good catch. It's just funny. So there's a little slither between two of them, but you can just kind of make out. Okay, that's that wallpaper.
It's things like that where you have to get the attention to detail from Lynch here is incredible.
Oh yeah, he puts so many little things like
it's meticulous. It really is.
I just imagine his office when he's writing. He's got the detective pin board up with all the strings, and he's just
yeah.
Like that's how he plans it, which in turn is how we end up trying to analyze it, as we have all the photos.
Yeah. We're trying to follow it, but without all the information.
Yeah, that madman. He's got us all going. Right, so where did I leave off in my notes here? I was sort of doing that without looking at these.
Yeah, I the Sky Vortex, and then need to decipher past that.
Yeah, Chuckle Men on stairs, wallpaper, Albert pulls Gordon back. Now then Diane sees the fat little charcoal man.
Yeah.
Right? She sees him sort of moving just at once, and she doesn't seem too disturbed by this. She seems to just keep a game face on, like she's got a poker face. Right? Then Gordon and Albert or at least Albert, looks over and notices a body lying in the ground, no head, female. So, and Albert rightly assumes this is probably Ruth, the secretary with Bill who got killed. That was her head in her house in the first episodes, and she has coordinates written on her arm. Last couple of digits are smudged, but he takes a photo. While this is happening, one of my favourite shots of the episode, the chubby little charcoal man is sneaking up to the car that's got Bill in it, because he's in the back seat, and the detective's in the front seat. And he obviously is, I don't know if he's handcuffed, but that kind of idea where he's in the back seat of the police car.
Yeah.
And this chubby little charcoal man's and he's hunched over and he's creeping up. And Diane sees this. Diane's watching this intently. And she's not warning anyone, she's not reacting. It's almost like she expects stuff like this to be happening. She's shady.
She is. I thought it was very interesting here.
That's my word for her in this episode. She is acting shady. Now, I kind of expect a swerve, and that this is all for the greater good, whatever she's doing. But that's maybe just hope, rather than anything else, or expecting a swerve. But she's definitely acting shady.
She is, definitely.
So we see him, he sort of fades out as he goes into the car. Like, he gets up to the side of the car and he fades out. And then we're just shot at the detective in the front seat, and then splat. And he starts freaking out. He's like, what the hell? What the hell? And he goes out and he grabs the radio from outside the car, and he has it outside, and he's like, get all back up. Get all back up. In fact,
did you catch the address of where he said it to?
I did not.
Because he called all back up to 2240 Sycamore.
Sycamore. Two viewings and I didn't catch that. That is
Shame on you.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Because of course, Sycamore Trees is where the entrance to the lodge is in Twin Peaks, and Sycamore Street or road or avenue or whatever the last word was.
The Dougie Cooper.
Yeah, that's where Cooper transferred where Dougie was.
Sycamore is the entranceways typically.
Yes, this is very interesting. That's a nice catch. That basically just confirms that all the entrances in the world that go there all have something to do with Sycamore.
I love that they can be artificial though, because obviously the ones in the woods are just they're just sycamore trees, but Sycamore Street, just like an address.
What I like about
that's enough.
I like that this wasn't always an entrance, but once they named it that, slowly it became one.
I think there's two arguments. One, what you've just suggested. Two, at some point in history there was sycamores there, and the lodge entrance existed, and people have subconsciously named these places Sycamore because of that.
I can see that.
That's the two options, I think.
Yeah, I can see both. I just think the reason why I'd maybe lean towards the first one is just that when they were building the houses there, did they not notice weird activity? Which makes me think it was something that developed over time.
It came because they called it Sycamore.
I don't know. I just thought
it's interesting either way.
So, yeah, one of my favourite lines of dialogue in this entire episode is after
I know exactly.
After the detective says, call all backup, Diane says, there's no backup for this, as she's looking in. And I really like that line. It's especially since she might know more about what's going on and she's leading on. But it's really, I really like that line. Great line of dialogue. And then, of course, everyone else comes over and looks at him. That's when we finally see what's happened to him. He's top half of his head's missing. He's just basically went splat. And the best comedy moment of the episode is just Gordon's perfectly delivered line of, he's dead.
Do you know what made me... It's hilarious anyway, but it cracked me up even more, because in my notes, I'd seen the head and just put, he's dead. And then he said it, and it just killed me.
They showed this episode a little bit early at Comic-Con on Friday, I think it was, at the Twin Peaks panel, and apparently that he's dead line got an absolute roar of laughter from the crowd.
I get it. He deserves it.
I would have loved to have watched one of these episodes with a crowd. That it would just be
It's watching things like that with a crowd is fantastic. Have you ever done it? Like a big crowd.
Yeah, well, I've been at midnight showings for stuff that are all fans, so that's kind of the same thing.
I did. I went when I was at Star Wars Celebration, and they showed the episode of Rebels. But I enjoy that anyway. But with a crowd of that of all those the fans, it's
the hardcore
incredible
fans
experience.
who are going to pick up and everything. Yeah. I can't. The atmosphere. Just I'm not going to go on a tangent here about the Comic-Con, but I did the first half of the panel, the non Q&A portion of it. I did go on YouTube, and I watched it earlier. And there was just a bunch of stories about how they all ended up getting to, the actors who were there. Not everyone. Yeah. They've got maybe 8 of them there. But my favourite part of it is that Damon Lindelof was hosting the panel. He's a big Twin Peaks fan. He inspired a lot of things. That's why he lost as a lot of the ways
Makes
it is.
sense. Yeah.
And Leftovers, of course. And obviously Kel MacLachlan was there, and before he started asking questions like, "Hey Kel, is there anything you want to say to the crowd before we get going?" And he went up to the podium where he was hosting and just went into the mic, "Hello."
Oh, the man is a hero.
That's
I watched
fantastic.
him do a Facebook Q&A a couple of weeks ago, and
Oh,
seems just the nicest guy.
he does. He seems like a really nice guy. He said that again. I promise I won't go on a tangent, and this is my last point on this. But when because we got telling the stories of how they found out that this was happening, that this was coming back, and
Yeah.
reactions, how were they asked, so on. And he said that Lynch called him and invited him over to. Well, he didn't invite him over. He said, I want to talk to you about something, but I can't talk about it over the phone." So they met at a hotel room, wherever one of them was nearby,
Yeah.
and he'd said, "Okay, me and Mark Frost are working on this. Would you be interested in going on this journey? Would you be interested in going back to Twin Peaks?" And apparently Kel's response, he said, was, "I've never left Twin Peaks."
Yeah, he told that story on that Facebook
Oh,
Q&A
did he?
as well. Yeah.
It was
Great
just a nice,
story,
it
isn't
was a
it?
nice response. It was just a nice
It
response.
is.
Something about getting a phone call from David Lynch and having him say, "I can't talk about this over the phone."
Yeah.
It's like,
And the thing is, because obviously for him, Lynch kind of formed his career, made him, like he set him
Oh,
on
yeah.
the career path he is between, a couple of things early on.
yeah, Dune, Blue Velvet, and then Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So, and he's kind of obligated.
Although the Big Ed one, Everett, his story was even more insane about how he found out. He almost wasn't going to be in it. Basically, no one knew how to contact him, and Lynch put it on Twitter. Does anyone know how I can contact Everett McGill? And someone gave him a number for a place that he doesn't really use anymore. Because he was telling the story, he has like a spare house somewhere. Where he just stores cars. He collects cars, and basically this is where some of his cars live. And he just goes there once in a while to drive the cars. He doesn't live there. And there's like it's an old rotary phone, he said, that was just on the wall, that he's not heard ring in 10 years. And he just happened to be there when that phone rang. And it
That's
was
fate.
David Lynch.
That's fate right there.
And that was just insane. But anyway,
We should get back to this.
back to
episode.
the episode. So yeah, big scene. Vortexes, entrances to lodge. They're getting closer. The FBI are getting closer to sort of piecing these things together.
Can we just say that vortex just looked great?
It did. It looked good.
Like, it wasn't like a complicated effect. It was just a swirl, but I don't know. It just looked really cool.
Yeah, it was big and grandiose, and I love that he could see it and no one else could. It was like this just simple idea
was, yeah.
to him the sky was opening up and it was this big, biblical almost moment, but everyone else is just like, there's chirping.
What the hell's he doing?
Yeah. So then we go to the Double R Diner, and I have almost a full page of notes for what is essentially one connected couple of scenes. So it's Becky with Bobby, who's in his leather jacket. I noted that down.
Yeah.
I'm assuming his leather jacket this season. And Shelley, and they're sitting there, and she's telling him about what's going on, and he's basically explaining, because I work with the sheriff, you don't in too much trouble, but you're going to have to pay for the door, and we're going to have to make this right. And they start asking about what's going on, and she's like, "Oh, I want a divorce. I want out. I need to get rid of him." Although she changes her tune, she sort of quickly.
Well, she doesn't say she wants a divorce. She says, "I want out. I want rid of him." And then they say, "Do you want a divorce?" And she goes, "No, I love him."
Yeah, it's very, very self-destructive. It does remind you a lot of Shelley in a lot of ways, and I'll talk about that more in a little minute in another scene. But I also noted down that Norma was kind of just watching the entire time and kind of judging at first, and then
keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, it's almost like she has been very motherly still towards Shelley, and by extension, she's grandmotherly towards Becky.
Yeah.
So all this was great. One of my favourite little touches in this scene. I think Bobby got a lot of good stuff in this episode, and it was really just this scene and sort of the next one that's kind of part of the same thing. But when Shelley brings up that Carl mentioned, "Oh, we all hear bad things going on in that trailer," Bobby's attitude and demeanour completely changes, and he says, "Has he hit you?" And what I noted, I like this because it was always a concern from my father that his daughter may be getting assaulted at home, right? Which makes sense. But what I loved about it was his delivery of the line, because his facial expression changed, and he looked like old Bobby. It was kind of like for a second the cop went away, the mature cop disappeared, and it was like I will shoot this asshole. Did he hit you?
And do you know what, that kind of is one of my favorite things about Bobby. I think he's one of the most interesting characters this season in a way.
He is. I think he is. I think he's fascinating.
I think it's strange to say that though, but I think it is because he's the idea of you can just grow up and outgrow that phase of your life, and you can. Yeah, you can be a bit of a shitty kid, but you can become a decent member of society.
And I think he genuinely has, because we debate. I mean, I remember speculating back when he was first introduced. Oh, is he still shady? And I don't think he is. I actually think he's genuinely a mature person.
No, I think he is. He's a genuinely good person.
Ever since, especially since we had the stuff with his father was brought into it, and it was it was this self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, that his father's like, oh, I seen you in the future and you were okay. Like, I thoroughly believe he's okay. And what I like about this, though, is like, okay, when he's pushed, though, that attitude of I need to get,
well, it's when it's kind of everywhere when he gets protective of his family, like he'll do what he has to do, sort of thing.
It was the way the way his upper lip kind of like stuck out. As strange as that might sound, it was just very old school Bobby. It felt like
he kind of just holds himself differently though for a moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's very. I've actually got another good point in just that type of action for the end of the episode as well, about someone just holding themselves differently for a second. So there's a couple of good examples of that in this episode. But he asked that, and then so Red, I believe his name is, the crime boss that was with Richard in that one scene. We seen him briefly in the first episode, hinting that Shelley was attracted to him, but we didn't really know if there was something going on or if it was just like a little flirtatious moment. He pops up, and I want to point out here that as he comes up to the window, it's just when Shelley... It's, in fact, one of my favourite moments of the scene as well. I keep saying that about all these scenes, because they all have so many good little things in them peppered throughout. But I like that... So they're having this conversation, and Becky says, no, he's never hit me. And we kind of seen him hit her... Not throw a punch, but he was being very abusive, certainly, when we seen him.
I think she doesn't consider it, because she does love him, I think. And she's kind of just forgiving him for anything that she considers small.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if either that's as far as he's went, and I would consider that kind of on that assault line.
It's too far already. Yeah.
Whereas, or either that, or she's just flat out lying, and she's not willing to admit that she is being abused, because it's almost this hard thing. Like, oh, that's not me. That's not happening to me. And then
Charlie would never have admitted it for a long time.
Exactly. But she says, look, you're staying with me tonight, and Bobby offers to lend her the money because like Shelley had been lending her money, and Becky openly admits, oh, he spent everything he ever gave me, I can't take any more. So she feels guilty about that.
Yeah, I really like that she's like, no, I'm not taking any money, because she, in moments like this, she seems more mature than I think I expect of her. Because a lot of the time when we see her around Steve, she's kind of shitty as well.
Yeah, it shows what sort of bad influence he has on her, and it also shows that, kind of like Shelley back in the original series, that there was moments where she was actually, seemed like a decent person, but she's obviously being corrupted by so many other things.
Yeah.
Around her. And it felt like that with her as well. And there was this moment where Bobby offers to pay the money, and then Shelley says, you're staying home with me tonight, we're getting you out of that house, and she's hugging her as Becky's crying. And one of my favourite things is, Norma, as she's been watching the whole time, she looks at Becky and makes eye contact with Betty, and sort of like
there's a little nod almost.
Yeah, like, give in to your mother here and like do the thing. And I love it. It's that moment. It's the moment of Norma, her sort of surrogate grandmother, looking at her, where Becky realizes, oh shit, I threw you off the hood of the car, and she brings it up like oh shit, I did that. I'm sorry, Mum. I'm sorry, I did. Like I just love that, and I love that it comes because I don't even think I noticed the first time. It was the second viewing when I knew where it was going, that I noticed, oh, it's actually Norma's glance at her that makes her realise, because the first time I was like, oh, that's really random. She just suddenly in the middle of the scene remembers that she did that.
Yeah, no, it's Norma prompting her, going, come on, you need to apologise.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It really sets up, I think, for as much as people think this show spends a lot of time doing nothing with its scenes, because it's very long and drawn out, I think there's a lot of really subtle things that tell you a lot about the characters and where they are in their lives right now.
They're there if you're looking for them. If you just go with just the dialogue, then you're going to miss a lot.
But Lynch has always been like that, though. You have to be paying attention. You have to be thinking about it. You have to...
Yeah, I think we went into that with those expectations. So I really want a scene between Becky and Norma, and just to see what their relationship's like. Yeah. I think it'd be really interesting.
That said, though, I think that nod tells you a lot about it already.
It does. I just want to see more of it.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I'd love to see more of that. And I think that's what's maybe exciting about this episode, at least the first half of it, is it feels like not only were we spending time in the town of Twin Peaks, I feel like I was really getting to know some of the characters now. Ones we'd already knew and where they are now. We know Becky, I feel like, a lot more now. I feel like we got a lot of meat with these characters in the
Definitely.
town. And then the town itself, which I'll get to in the next scene. I keep saying that, but there's stuff that links in with stuff that's coming up. So it's as she's hugging her that Red comes, walking up to the window and just gives a little wave, and he's like, and Shelley, I mean, she doesn't like do it in a harsh way or anything like that, but she immediately leaves Becky. She's like, she smiles and leaves because, the boyfriend's here, I need to go. She abandons her daughter, and that's maybe a harsh way of putting it.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, it happened at just the right time. A minute earlier, I don't know if she would have, but it got to the point where Becky was okay now.
Oh, sure, but there's a reason why I'm phrasing it like this, because it links into a theme that I want to talk about in a minute. But she kind of just immediately abandons her, throws her away, and goes outside. Now, of course, one of the things we are noting here is that I don't think Shelley knows this, but he's like, he's a asshole. He's a crime boss. He's awful.
Yeah.
And it's definitely this thing where Shelley's repeating the mistakes of her past. She's repeating the mistakes that she's blaming her. Well, not blaming, but her own daughter's making these same mistakes right now. But it's showing that she's actually still. And it made me think, wait, did her and Bobby split up because Bobby actually turns into like a responsible person? And even if Shelley doesn't realize it, she does have this thing where that's boring and she wants someone who's more exciting.
I think it is that, yeah.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think she's self-aware of it, though.
No, because she doesn't even know that Red is a bad guy. Like, he seemed very forthcoming and genuine to her.
Yeah, and obviously Bobby looked quite choked up by the whole thing as well. He was sitting there really awkwardly. Even Becky looked kind of awkward about the whole thing, just sitting there. And Shelley comes back. She's got a big grin on her face. She's quite happy. And then, out of nowhere, gunshot.
Yeah. I was like, what's going on?
Right by the window. And it feels like, this is this, intentional? Is someone trying to assassinate someone in here?
That's kind of what it felt like. So I was like, shit's going down.
And again, showing where Bobby is in his life, Bobby just goes into cop mode. He's like, turn off the lights, because he knows that's a smart thing to do. If someone's trying to hit someone, specifically, turn off the lights, don't let them see the target.
Make it hard to see him, and he goes straight out.
And he lunches down, he gets his gun out, and he's out, proper, by the book. He's doing his job. And he gets out, and of course, when we get outside, he quickly realises what's happened here. This car's stopped, and this little kid's standing there, and this mother's holding the gun, and she's screaming at the father for having a gun in the car. And it becomes very clear very quickly that this kid got a hold of the gun, and it was just an accident. It was just a complete...
Yeah, the kid just happened to pull the trigger.
It was a complete accident. But the woman is screaming her head off, and the dad seemingly is like, well, it's not that big a deal, and like, he doesn't really care. What I noted,
I'm definitely on her side here.
Oh, I'm on her side as well. This is absolutely insane. But what I noted here is the kid does not look apologetic. He looks like he wanted to hit someone.
I wrote down, that kid is a cock. Like, the look on his... when Bobby looks down at him, and he just stares up, like he's like, try me, bitch. That's the sort of look he's giving.
That's the sort of look he's got in his face. He does not care. And of course, Bobby looks at him, and he's wearing like a camouflage jacket, and then he looks up at the dad, and the dad's wearing a camouflage jacket. He doesn't seem to care about what's just happened either. And this, for me, is a big theme of this episode. It's kids becoming their parents. Again, going back to Becky and Shelley and her making the same mistakes. And even bad parenting, the idea that he let the kid get the gun. Kind of like how Shelley kind of almost ignored her actual daughter as soon as the boyfriend showed up. Like, this idea of neglectful parenting, it comes up again, as I mentioned, there's a talk about an orphanage later on, and then immediately there's another mother in a car with her kid who has a really weird attitude with her, like, there's a lot of things here about parenting and kids becoming their parents because of neglectful parenting. There's a lot of themes going on here.
And I think it parallels really nicely with Bobby, who became who he was because of his dad.
Yeah.
But in a very different way, of course.
And this was the other thing here. So throughout this whole scene, like, this woman is honking the horn because it's holding up the traffic because this car stopped. And Bobby goes over to after Jesse, the other cop that we've been seeing from the 5-second post cop is what I think of him as, who mentions his big Ed's, which is funny because I've not seen Big Ed yet, but he was at Big Ed's and he heard shots. I really liked his delivery. It was kind of quirky, very Twin Peaks.
Yeah, he was like, I heard shots. Figured I should come over.
Yeah, like that's not your job, you tool. And he goes over to this woman, and she just starts screaming and bawling in his face. It's good. And I wrote down everything she said, because I thought there's a lot to read into in what she says, even though
I wrote down a bunch of it as well.
Even though it's seemingly just a random, quirky Twin Peaks angry woman, like, there was so much... Because I think a lot of this actually relates to Cooper and the lodges and all this stuff, and, the idea of a return.
Can we go through it?
Yeah, here we go. So, we're already late, trying to get home. Her uncle is joining us She hasn't seen him in a very long while. We're late. We've got miles to go still.
Mm.
Is it just me, or is that just like talking about Cooper returning to Twin Peaks? Kinda.
It kind of is. Cooper is the one, he's on his way, but he's
He's
got
the
got a
uncle.
while to go
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. I thought there were, I don't think this character knows it. I think it's just very intense. Kind of like how Lucy sometimes says things that feel very like she's hitting on a really deep point there, even though she's just been kind of airheaded. And
Yeah. It feels the same way here.
I actually really like this actress. It was kind of like this was because obviously we criticised Truman's wife for being a little bit rough. Like she's doing the the over the top Lynch acting, but it just didn't feel quite right. Whereas I feel like this woman is nailing exactly what it's supposed to feel like, where it's over the top, but it's hitting these notes of like she is committed to this screaming. Like it's working really well. And then just to give you some more what the hell moments, her kid gets up like a zombie, vomiting something from the mouth, and actually is like,
Yeah, I put zombie sick.
yeah.
Also, not the only zombie imagery in this episode. Some I'll mention it when we get there.
Okay, I was struggling to think of that, but yeah, mention it when it comes up. So and I love as well that as the kid's getting up, the mother is not like, oh, this is the illness or whatever that I should know about because I'm the mother.
She's like, "What the hell is going on?"
She's screaming. She's like, ah.
Yeah, she's terrified. And for a second, I was like, "Is she just not wanting to get the sick on her?" But then it quickly becomes clear, no, this is something different.
Yeah, so here's my final sort of point about all this scene. Yeah, is that the town of Twin Peaks, and this ties into the diner being a lot busier, and even the roadhouse being a lot busier, and a lot more of the activity going on here, and the fact that this is so busy, traffic, that this woman with her kid being a zombie, the kid shooting the gun, everything going on. Because I remember, if you remember back in the original show, Cooper often talked about the town as if it was a special place. Like, yeah, there was this underlying darkness here that was coming from the lodges that was leading to stuff like the girls going to double one-eye jacks. I had to think of the name. It's been a long time since we talked about that place. But there was obviously an undercurrent of stuff happening, but the town was peaceful. He talked about how angelic it was. It was like the last good place left in the country that felt like the old times. And I feel like in the last 25 years, this town has went to shit. The darkness has overtaken it. It feels like something has fundamentally changed.
The town is sick.
Yes. The town is sick because the embodiment of good, Special Agent Dale Cooper,
has been gone from this world.
Yeah. And that's what I say. Obviously, Cooper wasn't there before, but I think his return is what's going to fix it.
I hope so.
If he wins the fight, I assume there's going to be like a battle of good and evil. Something.
Yeah, we're just assuming he's going to win. Although that said, it's definitely going to end ambiguous, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. But I feel like it really feels like the town as a whole has disintegrated because that fight was lost 25 years ago, and because Evil Cooper, Doppelkoop's been out and about, that this has happened because of it. Yeah. There's a sickness, like a literal sickness. This kid's sick. There's a literal sickness infecting the world.
It seems to be a lot of the kids, because in this scene especially, like one kid is physically just sick.
Yeah.
But the kid who shoots seems completely unremorseful. He's sick in a more evil sense.
Even characters like Becky and Steve, like the younger generation, like it's all the older characters. Chad's a dickhead.
Yeah. There's very. I mean, the only good kids I can really think of, those kids at the start playing catch. And the one who got run over. There's not been many.
Yeah, the one who got run over is now dead.
Well, no, but that's what I mean. Like that's the point. He was one of the few ones that seemed like a normal, normal kid, and he got gone.
It's not like everyone's a shithead, but it feels like the percentage of shitheads is going up gradually, and has done over the past 25 years. So it feels like a losing fight for everyone who's a good character. So. That's really what it felt like to me. The horn going off, all the traffic, all this chaos happening, random gunshots. I just felt like, there's just chaos. Twin Peaks is in chaos.
Yeah,
and
because at first it's like, well, just go around, just go around. It's not hard.
And alternatively,
that's the point. They're stuck there.
Nice observation. And alternatively, where Cooper actually is right now seems quite bright and sunny, and everyone's having a happy time. And we'll talk more about that as we get towards the final scenes of the episode.
Just while we're talking about traffic, I thought it was very strange when we get into some of the Cooper stuff. There's the line about lots of traffic.
Hmm.
And it didn't seem that bad. Not at least physically.
I mean, we saw it earlier in the day, to be fair. Like,
That's
you know,
true.
when Cooper was in the limo, we saw it at a different time. But yeah, no, obviously that theme comes up again. There's some different themes going on here. There's obviously parenting is a big one in this episode, but then you have the traffic and the idea of being stuck and not being able to get to where you're supposed to go. You're running late. Like that's definitely a thing here. So there you go. That's that big scene. So at this point, I was starting to think, are we even going to get any Kelly MacLachlan of any kind in this episode? Now, obviously, the back half of the episode is all Cooper, which is great. But next, we go to the police station to Hawk and Sheriff Truman. And Hawk pulls out this map.
Yes.
Presumably something he has because he's Native American, something that's came from his family or something like that.
I think that's the implication.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from it. And he brings out this map, and they're talking about making their trip, and they're saying, okay, this is where the coordinates we need to go to lead. And they're obviously going up there with Bobby soon. Maybe next episode, maybe the finale. Who knows? Who knows at this rate? But,
yeah, we don't seem to be following the traditional of the old show of every episode was a day.
Yeah.
Or I mean, we are kind of to a point with the Roadhouse gigs seem to be closing them out as a day.
It seems like this episode though is the back half of the previous day. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Whatever. I'm sure it works if you.
Yeah, because they still said day after tomorrow, didn't they?
They did. That's why I'm thinking it's still the same.
Yeah.
This is the night to the previous day that we saw in Twin Peaks. So pulls out the map. Now, first things first, the symbol, the little circle with the antlers, which might represent, Mother of Babylon, or Babylon, the mother of all abominations. I should say that right. That's it. I saw a screenshot of when we seen her in episode 8, and the antlers are very different. Now that could just be. That may not mean that it's not representing her, but I just. Because they were more sticky uppy in that, whereas these are definitely sort of droopy. They're sort of down.
They curve down, yeah.
But yeah, so I noticed that right away, and I was actually annoyed they brought it up because damn, I noticed that. I thought I'd noticed a little Easter egg, and then they brought it up like a minute later. So I'll save that till last. But so they talk about where they're going. It's one of the peaks. Blah 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 blah. Talk about the fire symbol. Now here's interesting, and he's Truman's like, oh, so it's campfire. He's like, no, it's a symbol of fire. He's like, what does that mean? And obviously, I'm thinking fire. Walk with me, fire of the spirits. And then he says, it's kind of like modern day electricity. And of course, we've been hearing these electrical hums and all this. And then Truman asks, good or bad? And he says, well, it depends. And I thought, oh, that was a smart, like just in terms of the show overall as a response, that's great because that hum seems to happen whether it is a good Lodge character or a bad Lodge character.
Yeah, he says it depends on the intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that defines everything. Like many choices can be good or bad, depending on how they're intended.
And if Laura is like is Laura herself like as an orb, as a spirit, is she also fire? Just a good example of fire kind of idea, like good or bad. It can be both. So,
yeah.
So no, I thought that was interesting. Then he points out this black corn which is diseased, and he says that the fire plus the corn equals this, and he points to black fire.
Yeah.
Which sounds like proper evil territory. Like if
because he talks about how corn usually represents fertility, but it's black. He says it's sick. It's got plague.
Kind of like the town.
Again, much like the town.
Or even the entire world, but Twin Peaks
yeah.
is what shows it's happening because that used to be so much better.
Right. And so instead of fertility, it's more death.
Yeah, interesting. So what gets spawned with black fire? Like that's my question. Like, because I don't think Bob's black fire. I still think he's just regular fire, but bad fire. So what is black fire? What is that? Is that Babylon herself? Eventually, I don't know.
Could be.
So that is fascinating stuff. And then this is when Truman. Oh, that symbol. The little antler symbol. He's like, oh, that was on the bit of paper that Major Briggs had there, and Hog's response was fascinating. Because he's like,
it was.
You don't ever want to know about that. Was his response? And Truman's like, but really? He's like, yeah. And he's like, I'm not telling you about that. And that is fascinating to me that if this is like say Babylon, does Hawk already know stories about this? Is this already something he knows?
Whatever this symbol is, Hawk knows what it is, and he is kind of terrified by it by the look of him. At least the way it looked to me is he was scared of it, and he doesn't want to burden Truman with that knowledge.
Yeah, it's like he wasn't even going to mention it, and then it was just Truman pointing. Like, well, what's that?
It's just like, yeah.
So very interesting. So that was sort of the end of that half of the scene. That was like going through this map. Lucy phones through, and I like that she's been talking to the log lady, obviously, as she's been putting her through about her chairs. So I don't even know why we care so much about furnitures, but oh, by the way, that reminds me. There was someone pointed out again. I think it's from Reddit. Do you remember? What was his name? Mr. Todd, Mr. Dodd, the hitman guy who's been hiring the hitmen in Vegas. He got like the red square on his screen to tell him it's time to do the job. Someone pointed out that red square is the exact same looking square on the chair select screen when Lucy was picking the colours for the chair. Now
Lucy was sending out hits.
Yeah, I don't think this means anything. I just thought that was funny. The idea that Lucy is somehow the mastermind behind everything is amusing to me.
Her picking the red chair was her giving the order.
Yeah. What I really liked actually about this is again, sometimes Lucy will have a little line that you can read into, even though she doesn't mean anything by it.
Yeah.
She says, log lady's on line 2. That's the one that will be blinking once I hang up. And I just the idea that flashing lights when lodge of characters appear, the idea that the blinking one is the one you want. That's where someone's coming in from. I thought that was a nice little touch.
No, I agree.
So yeah, log lady. Here's another theme that this has been popping up through the whole show, arguably back to the original series, but certainly this season there's been a lot of repetition, where Cooper will repeat a line that someone says to him. Candy in last episode and this episode repeats, like someone has to say something twice before they'll get something out of her. There's repetition. Here, the log lady says a lot of her things twice. She says, "My log is afraid of the fire." Actually, first she says, "Can you hear me?" She says that twice. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? My log is afraid of fire. Now they've just been talking about it, and so obviously clear implications there that log's afraid of what they're going to. There's fire. In fact, that's what she says next. There's fire where you're going. She says that twice, and that's basically it. That's just after that, it's just goodbye. But again, it's just this idea of impending doom, that they're going somewhere dangerous.
Yeah, it's just reinforcing that the log's afraid of fire, and the log has kind of been this immutable force. Kind of, it's never showed fear before.
And in a weird way, it makes sense that a log is afraid of fire because it's wood.
Yeah. But obviously, there's the great meaning here.
Oh yeah, I know there's a deeper meaning. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But
on surface,
I think it's amusing that everyone watching it is going, the meaning that we're talking about, the fire spirits, but instead you could just read it as, of course it's fire and a log. But I think that's the overlooked one in this case.
Then a random little bit at the end here. Jesse, 5-second post cop, he chaps at the door, and Truman goes up, and he's there, and you think, oh, he's here to see him about something, maybe the shooting, or maybe what's going on. And he says, and I've written this down, I wanted to get the phrasing right. Are you interested in seeing my new car? To which Truman, politely says, "Well, we're in the middle of a meeting right now. Can I see it tomorrow?" Oh, sure. And he shuts the door. And he just turns around and just looks at Hawk like, "What the hell is it with these young cops? They're all shit." Is basically his reaction.
It is.
I actually had a little bit of a meta reading on this. I think this is a little bit of meta commentary where the Twin Peaks characters, Hawk, and obviously this isn't our Truman, but he's kind of a surrogate for Truman we had in the original show. This is like this is Lynch with his new ideas. Like, oh, do you want to see our new characters and scenes outside of Twin Peaks? It's like, can I see them tomorrow? We're busy. We've got important actual Twin Peaks stuff to talk about.
We're liking this reconnecting we're having here. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but
and nothing makes you reconnect more with Twin Peaks than donuts. So,
which leads us to our next scene. Back in Dakota, back at the police station. They're sitting around. They confirm a couple of things. Albert's like, yeah, it turns out it actually was Ruth. They've confirmed that, and blah 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 blah. And
I noticed that Gordon was like shaking at the start of this scene.
He was, because he points at he says he's like cat in a hot tin roof, and then Albert says, "Oh, they're bringing coffee. Maybe we should get you some hot milk instead." And Gordon doesn't hear him properly, and
it's actually the first time in a while we've really seen Gordon seem to have problems hearing. Like this event has really shook him up.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like this thing's had an
That's what I
impact on
didn't
him.
actually notice. Yeah, I forgot to mention.
Oh,
When he started seeing the vortex, and we were hearing the electrical hum,
yeah.
but when it cut to his point of view, you hear it so much louder because he's got it turned
Mm,
up.
yeah. A nice touch.
It was nice.
So Albert whips out the photo of Ruth's arm, and they're talking about the coordinates. Uh, Very interesting here. Again, Diane acting shady.
She's giving it a sly glance, isn't she?
She's looking at it, and it looks like she's trying to memorize it. She's sort of saying it to herself, mouthing it back to herself. She's trying to memorize it. And then Albert, of course, always on the job, catches this, notices this,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like, I was looking over there.
He's onto her.
Yeah, well, we know they're onto her because of the whole text thing from last
Well,
episode.
yeah, but he's really onto her.
Yeah. Interesting. Just before the donuts and coffee came in, I really want a donut now. I'm just picturing that plate of donuts.
I just want to say, Detective Mackley is a good man when he walks in with that plate of donuts.
Oh, he is, yeah. 2 plates of donuts, even.
Yeah, it's just like, that is a good man.
It's a great man.
Yeah, you're right. I'm underselling.
So they come in, but just as they're coming in, the last thing we hear is like, oh yeah, we the last couple of numbers are smudged on the coordinates, but it leads to what appears to be a small town in the north. Now the only thing against it being Twin Peaks, I guess, would be if it's in that area. Would Albert not go assume, or like, oh, that's funny, that's around where Twin Peaks is? Maybe that'd be the only thing to suggest that it's not Twin Peaks, but certainly Twin Peaks is a small town in the north. It's right at the border of Canada.
It is, and I think that's the logical assumption.
Oh.
Maybe logic isn't the best thing to use with this show, but
No, not logic. Not logic.
they do.
So they come in, and then there's some banter about Diane wanting to smoke and whatnot. Nothing super in depth there, I don't think. But what I do think is interesting is when she brings up that she thought she saw this, because Gordon. This actually ends the scene, but he remembers that he saw this in the vortex. He's like, I saw a room. I saw dirty bearded men in a room. Also a good line. Lynch was really hitting out some great lines in this episode. So he remembers that, but when they're talking about seeing someone, a bearded, homeless-looking man, Diane's like, oh, I thought I saw someone leave the car like that. And that was a very interesting comment for a number of reasons. One, of course, we know she saw him getting towards the car.
But we never saw leaving.
And that doesn't mean to say that she's wrong. She might have saw him leaving, we just didn't see it. But of course, Mackley's like, I was in the car, and no one was, no one was, obviously he doesn't know it's supernatural and it's this otherworldly thing.
Do you know, I'm having a question. I wonder if the charcoal men actually have a physical effect on people where, they don't quite remember them. Because Gordon should have been an obvious thing for him to remember what he saw in there. That should have been a big thing.
And even Hastings said he couldn't quite remember.
Right. And when we saw you saw the one walking up the police station hallway.
So maybe she's been honest and she's kind of mixing it up and it's muddled in her head.
Yeah, because she didn't remember straight away. Maybe that's why she didn't intervene. It's not that she was being shady, but maybe it was just something about them just goes, don't interfere.
I mean, she was definitely being shady before.
Right.
That was definite shadiness.
Oh yeah, definitely with that. But in that moment, when she sees it going towards the car, maybe it's more they just put off this aura of just, you don't really notice they're there until you have to think about it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because they're all kind of looking at her like she's crazy, and she's like, well, I said I wasn't sure, but I like that. That kind of lines up with that. So that works. So then we finally land on Cooper.
That time.
We get to Lucky 7. Very simple scene to start off with here, with Bushnell basically just kind of summing up everything that Cooper kind of accidentally uncovered. That there's all this conspiracy going on, there's fraud, there's some sort of criminal, organised crime thing going on. Yeah. But because it's the Mitchum brothers that got screwed, it doesn't appear to be them that's responsible. Which is why he's accepted that when they asked for a meeting with him today, he accepted. Because, when you hand them this check for $30 million, they're probably going to be quite pleased.
Yeah. Also, just, forgot, this was the scene where I was talking about, the other zombie imagery. It was Cooper going after the coffee, when he was being led in.
Oh, I love that shot, actually.
Arms outstretched, going after it. Very, very zombie imagery-esque.
I like that because it was all one shot, and you see it,
You
like you
just
see
see
Bruce
him in
Nolan
the
on the phone
window.
first, and it's actually just in the distance. You can kind of see it a little bit, and it's like, is that Cooper over
Oh,
there? And then it just keeps getting closer. Like it just,
I
it's like,
love
oh, it
how
is.
Bushnell just starts doing push-ups against the desk.
It is. Because really, at his age, he could probably just let that go. He's
Yeah, yeah,
done.
but he's like, I've got 30 seconds while I wait here. Gotta get a few in.
Very active man,
Yeah,
commendable. So, so that was basically it. The only other thing I really noted about this episode,
this scene.
this the scene, sorry, yeah, is that he mentions that the 30 million payout's not a big deal because there was a secondary policy on it for them to cover it. First of all, I'm not sure entirely if you can get secondary policies on $30 million. That seems a bit. it seems a bit on the high side for me, but
It
whatever.
does, but yep.
Whatever. But I was like, oh, is that kind of like Doppelkoop though? Like he had second because he had a distraction. He had Dougie invented, and then he had like assassins in place to kill it. I almost just sort of related it to Doppelkoop having like a secondary
Yeah.
policy on making sure he didn't go back to the lodge. Just a small thing, but
No, I like it.
then we cut to the Mitchum brothers in their house. It's a nice quiet scene for the most part with them. Rodney's sitting eating his cereal, and that's made me want cereal as well. This show's really good at making me want food.
But it's much more likely you've got cereal in than donuts.
It does, because I did have cereal, and I in fact did have some cereal after the episode. Nice big bowl of it.
Good choice.
But he's sitting eating the cereal, and then Bradley comes up, Belushi's character, and he comes up, sits next to him. I like that these two brothers are still like living together by choice, even though they're both very successful millionaire gangsters.
Yeah.
It's their choice. It's not like they have to, but they've chosen to have a very nice house and live together. It's just a nice little thing there, And so there's the setting, and Bradley brings up a dream. He's like, I had a dream last night. I can't shake it. I was dreaming about killing this Dougie Jones. I want to kill him. And I was getting really amused at how much he really was desperate to kill.
Yeah, he was saying how he was dreaming about it all night.
And it was very interesting. And then Rodney, I'll just try to think of the other brother's name there. Rodney's like, oh, well, it's soon enough. Like, can you wait for another 3 hours? And then I noted, oh, the lazy bastards, they only get out of bed at 2:30. Because we knew in the previous scene that they were coming to get him at 5:30.
Well, I mean, it actually cuts to the clock and it shows it's 2:23.
Was that at the start of the scene or the end of the scene?
It was just before he says you have to wait 3 hours.
Oh, there you go. I think I had the thought just before it cut to it then. Because I remember thinking that before they confirmed what time it was.
It was
Yeah.
either just before or just after then. It was around then. It cut to the clock. It showed 2:23.
I distinctly remember having that thought, and then obviously they showed the clock. I think that maybe the second viewing I was taking notes down and wasn't looking at the screen or whatever.
Because I wrote down 2:23 just in case. Even though I was like, I know that's only just because it's there just to confirm, 3 hours.
Yeah.
But I'd write down anyway.
Yeah. Which tells you I wasn't looking at the clock the second time because I just wrote down 2:30 because it was roughly
There you go.
2:30.
Missing valuable numbers here. Numbers are key. You know this.
So, it's a couple of small things I really liked. I liked that Rodney, there's this little thing after Bradley sits down where he just kind of nudges the milk jug towards him to say, here, have your breakfast. But he doesn't say anything. He just,
Yeah, it's like, look, get some normalcy, routine. You'll stop worrying about it.
some cereal at 2:30. Yes, normalcy.
That to be fair, come on. What time did you have your cereal after watching this for the second time?
It was PM, okay? But still, late
you
PM.
go.
But, look, just because I'm saying that, admittedly, like, my sleeping schedule and the way my schedule in general is, yes, very weird.
You are the last person to criticise them for getting up at 2:30.
Do you know what it is? They're so well put together. Do you know what it is? They wear suits. Men who wear suits do not sleep till the afternoon. That is my belief.
They do if they're rich enough not to give a damn.
But I feel like if you're rich enough not to give a damn, you wouldn't wear the suit. You'd wear a t-shirt. You'd be comfortable.
Yeah, but what if you want to wear a suit? Suits are cool.
Okay. I think it contradicted my assumptions about
I
rich
think
gangsters.
honestly, I think the suits are not because it's comfortable. I think it's just the idea of, they're just reaffirming themselves that they've got the money, they've got the power. It's
True,
the same
true.
that they have the big house just because they can.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. So that's all I've got written down there. More stuff in his dream in a little bit. Back to Lucky 7. This is basically Cooper. Bushnell's taking him out to get picked up by the limo. Same limo driver from episode 4 that would have been.
Yep.
Which he points out. He's like, "Hey, red door." But obviously, before he goes out, he looks over and he sees a vision of the one-armed man.
Yes.
Red curtain, kind of like he's seen before, sort of signaling him over, sort of leading him to a place. And then it was when I noticed the sign. It said it was a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What's he getting in there? And then he walks out with this big box, and I'm like, well, that's not coffee, unless he bought like they sell like bags of coffee beans. There's just like a big stack of like bags of coffee beans in there. It's like he's bought something, right? He's bought something in this giant box. No idea what it is. Gets in the limo, and they have to go. Was there anything else in that scene actually I wanted to point out? Just when Bushnell sort of gives him a little punch in the chin, knock him dead, and he sort of like holds his mouth and goes, "Dead."
Yeah, he holds his face for a long time.
Yeah,
like as he's being pushed into the limo, he's still holding it.
I think it's this weird thing where maybe when he was in the lodge, it felt like being dead. Like, like he went to an afterlife or something like that. Or, maybe that's what's kind of triggering. I'm not sure, but definitely a thing. Right, so he gets in the car. Gets in the limo. We have... And this is where I was sort of doing the contrast between, like, how dismal and chaotic Twin Peaks is right now to Las Vegas. Obviously, there's more later on with the characters being happy with them, but... this very delightful drive with this very upbeat version of Viva Las Vegas playing, and it's all nice, breezy.
Which I thought was really weird because it was like some of the first music in a long time in the episode. Like, I had gone a long time without music.
Yeah, there was some sinister stuff with Becky in that
very early on. Like,
yeah,
pretty much after that Becky stuff through to like here, there was nothing almost.
It was very upbeat though. I actually kind of enjoyed the little ride in the car on the way over.
Yeah, I did too. It was just nice, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because as much as the thrillers want to kill him, and admittedly we also know he's got a $30 million check for him in his pocket, which admittedly usually, stops people from murdering him.
It usually does. I mean, that said, they can kill him and take the check anyway.
They can do. But for some reason you feel comfortable, you feel like he's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's a very confident scene for whatever reason.
Yeah, you feel like... I mean, he's not aware that he's confident, but we feel confident that he's okay. And it's almost
I think it's also, the fact that we just had that vision from the one-armed man going, it's like there's a plan in place.
Yeah, there is a plan in place, and I think it's a very particular plan that we can actually very specifically detail in a minute.
We can quantify the plan, yeah.
Yeah, so Brawls are out in the desert. They're in the car, another car themselves at first, and Bradley's like conflicted because he's like, oh, but he killed Ike the Spike for us, and he's like, that wasn't for us, and Rodney's like, no, we're going to kill him. And he's like, yeah, we are going to kill him. But he can't let his dream go. He keeps bringing up the dream, and he says, in the dream, your candy cut was healed. The cut that Candy gave him with the remote last episode. And he's like, don't be ridiculous, it couldn't be. And he leans over and pulls off the plaster, Band-Aid for people who don't understand plaster. And it's healed, it's gone. And he's like, damn it. And he's like, there's more, but I can't remember it. And he can't remember it right at that moment. Another theme of the episode, actually, because, with all the other characters forgetting what they'd been seeing.
Yeah. No, that's true. This is the big thing with dreams, though, isn't it? Like you don't remember, but then you'll see something, it'll jog your memory, and all of a sudden it'll come rushing back to you.
But that almost works with the idea that anything that's lodge related, whether it's dreams being beamed into a head, kind of like with Cooper, and presumably here with Bradley, it feels like a dream. But even like them going to the portal and stuff, still feels kind of dreamlike.
It works. It also works with Gordon and Diane with the charcoal men, where they didn't really remember until it was prompted, and then Gordon was like, "Oh yeah, there was that."
Yeah. So they get out, and limo pulls up. He comes out, and Bradley starts freaking out. He's got a box. He had a box in my dream. He had a box in my dream. And if there's something in that box, if there's something specific, now it's just this one thing, like a million to one odds. But if there's this one thing in that box, we can't kill him. And it's like, what? Because at this point, my mind's going like,
what the hell is in that box?
What's in the box? I'm having flashbacks to Seven. Out in the desert. What's in the box?
Yeah.
But we knew it.
It's like you didn't get that in a coffee shop.
But yeah, we knew he went into a coffee shop to get whatever this is. So there's only a limited number of things it could realistically be.
Right.
It's really weird. And even all the things I could think of, I couldn't think of anything that would be in this type of box. No, to be fair, the thing that's in the box, I wouldn't think would be in this box either. It's almost like they ran out of the proper boxes they use for giving out this.
It is exactly that, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, we've just got one of these. Is this okay? That's what it kind of felt like. But he's like, and he whispers it to his brother. Bradley whispers it to Ron. And he's like, right, you know, we don't hear it. And I thought they were going to wait until we saw it before we know what it was. But then there's that really exciting moment where it's like, okay, fine, whatever. And he pulls out the gun. And he holds it up to Cooper. And he's like, is that a cherry pie in that box? And I flipped my
cheered.
shit.
I like cheered. I was like, yes, cherry pie.
I was
like, it's Twin Peaks.
I cannot believe that they kept the cherry pie off screen all this time to give us this triumphant moment where the cherry pie saves his life. Because here's what's happening, right? So he goes over, he looks in the box, it's a cherry pie, which, by the way, I loved Belushi's delivery of this, where he's like, cherry pie! Like, he really accents the pie. I actually thought he was great. Like, he's not an actor that I would consider particularly good, but I think he's killing it in this season. Every time he's annoyed at Candy and he like stares at her in this sort of weird like what is wrong with you women sort of look, here with the pie, and then when he gets the check and he's all round up and he's like, oh, 30 million, like all of his expressions are great. But so the pie's there and he's like, the pie was in my dream and that means we can't kill him. Now obviously they're quite happy after that because he frisks someone, he gets the check and they're happy they've got $30 million. And you know it ends with the scene ends with Ron going, I love this guy, or no, it's Bradley that says that, but whatever, but like they say, I love this guy, which is so flipped from before. So here's what's happened then, right? Because he has a dream that if he has a cherry pie in a box, he's not his enemy. The one-armed man gives a vision to Cooper to make sure he's got a box with a cherry pie in it.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that he put the dream there.
Just like in back in season 1 of Twin Peaks when the dream was pumped into Cooper and the man from the other place was there, Laura or Laura's cousin or whatever you want to call her, she was there. It feels like this was them giving him a message to make sure it's like they're protecting Cooper or he's protecting Cooper.
Oh, definitely.
Very much so, and not even just protecting. It's almost like he's making sure he has allies because this is the thing. This whole end of the episode is like they're starting. They call him his friend.
Friends, yeah.
And I'm like,
I think it's possibly the most clear cut the show's been. It's very clear. This, that was the dream. It was given by that. This was the plan. This is exactly what was supposed to happen. Also, just want to point out, cherries are red.
Thank you for that.
I know. I like
they
cherry
are indeed,
pie because
yes.
it's red.
Cherries are red indeed. Fantastic scene. Like I was like edge of the seat the whole time, and then when he said cherry pie, I
literally like cheered. I was like, yes, cherry pie. This is fantastic.
And the funny thing is I never thought of like a pie or a cake or anything like that.
It's because they throw you off with the box because you'd expect
exactly.
a small flat, almost like a pizza box.
But when he says it, it's like you could buy a cherry pie in a coffee shop.
Exactly.
This is insane. This is all working, and it's going to be there before he opens it because that this has been orchestrated. The one-armed man has made sure this is like it's great stuff, and it's like so. Not only that, all I could think after this was like, Mr. Todd and Doppelkoop, Cooper's kind of got an army now. Like he's building alliances. It's like because one of the things we didn't mention about the scene with Bushnell is that there's a small bit where Anthony's like walking past the window and he's like, "Oh, what's going on in here?" And he's like very concerned. And I love the idea that like they've concocted this plan to get Doogie killed from the Mitchum brothers, and it's all completely flipped, and now they're best friends, and now this is like this is blown up worse than you could have possibly imagined. So after that, I love you guy. We cut to a restaurant, a sort of bar restaurant, kind of guy playing piano over in the corner, very very nice atmosphere, and they're toasting. They've had dinner, drinking champagne. They're toasting to the pie that saved your life, and there's funny stuff where Doogie keeps trying to take his drink, and he's
red seats.
I did notice the red seats. There was also there was a lot of little just odd bits of red throughout this episode that I thought was
Yeah, I've got one coming up in a minute that is it's a nothing thing, but it's still red, so I'm gonna point out.
Fair. So they're sitting there, blah 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 blah. And they're all happy, and that's when I mentioned earlier that an orphanage was brought up. These brothers mentioned they came from an orphanage because they're saying, "Oh, your kid doesn't have a climbing
gym set."
Gym set, yeah, And it's like, oh, even our orphanage had that. And it's like, oh, well, right away, that tells me a lot about you two and why you two were so determined to make something of yourselves.
It tells you why they're so close as well, and like
Yeah.
why they're living together, because
they never had,
don't know any other way.
yeah, never really had parents, so they relied on each other. Yeah, it's amazing how
Yeah.
much depth we have of these two characters who seem like, I don't feel like we're going to get a lot of screen time from them now. We'll probably see them again, but I feel like this episode and last week's are probably the most screen time they're going to get.
Probably, yeah.
It feels that way. So the pianist, like, he's playing something kind of jolly or whatever, and then it goes sad. Turns into this sad composition.
He's got some nice red roses on his piano as well.
That's a very, very fair point. This is a new composition. I actually even contemplated that the pianist may even be the composer. It is not. It doesn't look anything like him. But it seemed like the sort of cameo he could have had, potentially, if it was him. But it's a new composition. I believe the track is called Heartbreak or Heartbreaking. And Cooper notices this, and he really pays attention to it. And while this is playing, the old lady at the casino, when he was Mr. Jackpots, walks into the room, and she's, got a nice sort of dress on. She's with who turns out to be her son. She's out for a nice dinner or whatever, and she comes up to Cooper. And I've noted down kind of a couple of things she said here. She said her life is fixed, and she said a bunch of things like, "I wanted to thank you," and she looks at the brothers and says, "He's a really special person. I'm happy that I get a chance to say thank you. I'm happy that I saw you again." Now, the way I read into this, and again, the music playing the piano just works beautifully with this, is that as much as she was like a comedy, she was a little comedy moment, nice little comic scenes when she was in those casino episodes. I like this idea, again, going against Twin Peaks being in chaos and being a sad place right now, that Cooper simply being around, even though he's not all there,
He's making things better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. He's making things better for everyone around him. And then the second thing I'd read into this scene is, I think real Cooper's back soon. Because she says, "I'm glad I get a chance to thank you." And to me, that says he's not going to be like this for a long time.
And some of the, this is one of those ones that red bits that I was saying is tiny and probably nothing, but I think reinforces the idea that this is a more serious thing to take away rather than a comedy beat. Is her nails are painted red.
There you go.
And
again, it's smaller, but
they're very visible though, because she puts her hand on his shoulder,
also,
and it's very visible of them.
After this, the girls come in. Again, all in a kind of a straight line, very sort of almost choreographed the way they came in. All works quite nice. The music's back to being kind of jolly again, and I did note down that the way Candy is actually is not that different to Cooper here. Like
no, she's very vacant.
She has, she's not listening. She's asked again. She brings up the traffic. She says it was really busy, and
I think it was just before you get to that. They asked her, where have you been? Like, where are you? Like it was like, not obviously physically they were asking, why are you late? But
and we speculated last week, going with our theory with Jerry, where he's kind of feeling things that Cooper is feeling or should be feeling, and it's like the interdimensional wires are being crossed or whatever, and like people are feeling all things, and we suggested that maybe Candy's feeling something like that for someone else. Since you mentioned the traffic in Las Vegas was not that bad, it just made me think there, like, what if she's actually really talking about the traffic in Twin Peaks?
Yeah, which is what I was thinking when they asked, where were you? And obviously they just mean, why were you late? But for her, it could be like physically, like mentally, where were you?
Yeah, and that's what her response means. That could be right. I don't know.
I really think we're reaching with this whole theory, but I like it enough that we just stick with it and go with it.
The fun thing is it might never be proven right or wrong, but it could still fit into everything. So
that's the thing. So far, everything kind of works for it, and it's built. So until they prove it wrong,
I can see it. So they ask them to bring in the pie. I also noted in one of my favorite reaction shots was Belushi. After she tells the story about the traffic, and he's just sort of like. Yeah. He stares at her for a good little while, and Cooper starts eating the cherry pie. They bring out the cherry pie. He
roasts it down,
and he starts wolfing it down. And the brothers have a bite as well, and they're like, "Oh, that's damn good." And this was the moment I was talking about earlier when I was talking about Bobby, and I said that for a moment it was like he slipped into his old acting routine, like his composure changed, everything. When Cooper repeats, because he does repeat the line, he says "damn good" first, and then Cooper says "damn good." But when he says "damn good" this time, unlike every other time he said it, it sounded like Cooper.
Well, that's it. You can almost hear the smile.
Yeah.
But whereas before, whenever he repeats things, it's still that vacant, monotone voice.
Yeah, that's
Whereas,
legitimately sounded like he was Cooper again. For a second, like it went back, obviously,
yeah,
right after the line. But it was noticeable. And
I
obviously,
think
I think it's
go on.
intentional for a start. But
Yeah,
and if it is intentional, which I think it is, I think it's really impressive that Kel MacLachlan can do that, can just slip into it slightly for a line and then slip back out of it. And just,
yeah. I definitely think it's intentional because I think if it wasn't, Lynch would have gone, do it again.
of course, yeah, because it's David Lynch. Yeah, I mean, the only dispute, I guess, for me saying, "Oh, I think this is over soon," because the old lady's like, "Oh, I'm glad I get a chance to thank you," is almost as if it's before you stop being you and you start being
Yeah,
Cooper again. Is maybe the driver in Twin Peaks saying we've got miles to go. If I am comparing that to what's going on, that maybe that's a sign that it's the opposite. But
yeah. But then this damn good was, that's the closest he's ever been to Cooper all season. Like, and it feels like that's it. He's almost there. Like there was a glimpse of him for once.
I do want to point out the next episode is not titled, but you know those teases.
Yeah, yeah.
The tease for the next episode is simply "Let's rock."
Can't wait.
That could be something important. That could be. So, yeah, I've just written down "damn good." Didn't write down my thoughts. I knew what it meant.
Yeah, I just put damn good as well.
Yeah, and then the final sort of moment is that it says get more pie for our friend here, and Cooper almost on the verge of tears, seemingly, probably just because he's got his mouth stuffed a cherry pie and he can't speak properly. But it's almost like he's about to cry happy tears as he says "friend."
I
And
thought it was really interesting that the friend, instead of just being a vacant repeat, almost sounded like a question. Like,
yeah.
friend? Like, you consider me a friend now?
And then like they're very happy with him. They smile back at him, and that's when it goes to the because I predicted the pianist would probably be the end of
Yeah.
the episode, like kind of like instead of the bar. But
Yeah, well, it just feels more natural, doesn't it?
and it went to the pianist, and he ended his piece, and then went back into the same sad music from before, and that's what played us out. Uh, Absolutely astonishing,
Yes.
fantastic episode.
Wonderful
Loved it.
hour of TV.
There was not a dull moment from start to end.
No,
This was packed tight. It hit the ground running right from the get go with all the Becky stuff. It was intense. It was mysterious. Then we had the vortex stuff, and then we had that fantastic, the diner scene, which gave us a lot of character, but then gave us that random shooting, which was like, just what the hell happened? And then we got all this Cooper stuff, which
And you've missed the whole stuff with Hawk, with the
I
map.
thought, yeah, like this
It was packed.
this was packed. It's almost like I wish he'd divvied this between this and last week and said, right, let's shuffle a couple of things around, but like I say, last week's been a bit of a down episode. Won't matter when you binge watch it later. So I'm not concerned about
And
it.
ultimately, this episode is better because it has stuff that if you'd split it up into last week's, and put some of this stuff in there, this episode wouldn't have been as great because it wouldn't have had all of it.
Yeah, this was balls to the walls. It really feels like things are turning up. Like, we're heading to someplace dark, going to the Black Fire, going to all this stuff, and Cooper sounding like Cooper for a fleeting moment. And, I've kind of accepted that if we don't get Cooper until the final episode, like, I'll live with it. If that's what Lynch's vision is, if that's what his plan always was,
Yeah,
like, that's fine.
it's a little disappointing because you want more of it, just because that's what you go in wanting, isn't it? So it's disappointing by that nature, but at the same time, it's like I get it.
Yeah. I'm not, this isn't a prediction, but I'm suggesting one way it might happen.
Go on.
And not in terms of what causes it, just of how it's handled as a from filmmaking
As a moment,
point
yeah.
of view. You know how at the start of the show, because one of my favourite things every time the opening titles start up in this is that it's quiet, and then as the title comes in, the theme kicks in.
Yeah.
It's the first episode, it had the photo of Laura, and it kicked in. Part of me almost wants it to be the end of an episode, so maybe the end of next week, say, where his facial expression just changes, and as it changes, the main theme kicks in and it goes to credits.
No, I get it. I'm convinced the moment that we know that Cooper's back, it'll just be him smile. He'll just do that smile.
It'll just be the smile. Yeah, I can see it being the
That's
smile.
because that's all you need. You go, that's it. Cooper's back. I'm convinced that's what it'll be.
Maybe in the mirror. Like I can almost see him looking in the mirror and seeing like they can have Bob in the mirror again, but Bob will fade away, and then Cooper will smile. Like I could see that being like a
Maybe,
moment
maybe
or something like that.
it could do. I think the mirror maybe has too much connotations with
Maybe.
the negative side of things. So maybe just showing it straight into his face is like, no, this is Cooper. There's no hidden truth to it.
That's fair. That's fair. This was fantastic. I'm sure there's some small stuff that we did miss. By all means, let us know in the comments. Thoughts and theories about everything that popped up there. Like, subscribe, all that stuff helps us out a lot. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel and everything we do, head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. Check out some of the bonuses over there. Sorry, this is a few hours later than normal this week. Scheduling and stuff. Also, when we talk longer, it takes longer to go up.
And essentially, basically, blame Game of Thrones existing on the same night now because we have to schedule that in as well.
I do blame that.
With Matt.
That said, I keep pushing Connor to be ready to go earlier every week so that we can try and get this out before he has to do Game of Thrones. Maybe one week I will be successful.
Maybe.
He's not promised anything. This sly little.
This is the problem.
ginger
Let's see.
shit.
We're coming to the end of the month now, and I do not have my work rota for next month yet. So we're gonna have to see where things line up.
Oh dear. But no, don't worry. Don't worry, Peaks fans. Peaks gets priority. He always gets priority. I ensure it gets priority because I don't care about Game of Thrones and I'm the one running the show, so Peaks gets priority. So thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the episode again in the comments and all that stuff. And hopefully we'll be back next week if the world doesn't end and the sky doesn't open up and suck us all in. I'm just babbling now. We've been on so long. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Have you got any vanilla?